The Jim Crow era was a time of bitter racial division and glaring inequality. It was only in 1954, after the Brown v. Board of Education landmark decision proved racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional. Although the conditions of America have improved since then, we still have similar problems in today's society, and more specifically, in schools. In more recent years, there's more of an emphasis on segregated people between different socioeconomic classes. Remnants of historical segregation are still prevalent today in factors such as public housing and gentrification, which are the major contributors to segregation in public schools of today.
An emotional meeting on the Upper West Side, parents objecting to a proposal to require each of the 17 local middle schools to reserve a quarter of their seats for students scoring below grade level.
You're talking about telling an 11-year-old you worked your butt off and you didn't get that, what you needed or wanted. You're telling them you're going to go to a school that's not going to educate you in the same way you've been educated. Life sucks. Is that what the DOE wants to say?
Neighborhoods are segregated, and those were purposefully segregated starting over 100 years ago. So I would say if we want to tackle school segregation, we need to desegregate neighborhoods.
Mayor de Blasio would tell you it's because our neighborhoods are segregated and most students go to their zone school. But the truth is that less than half of students in New York City go to their zone school. It's my belief that the schools are segregated because we have a society of white supremacy. White is normal. Caucasian is normal. That creates an imbalance that makes anyone who's not that abnormal.
I didn't feel like going back to any Brooklyn schools because I felt that, my mom felt that it was pretty dangerous where I used to reside at.
I would say New York's state schools city schools are segregated because it's based on your income. Because if you're poor, which is more minorities are poor, then you're gonna go to a poorer public school. Because remember, you can't leave your zip code and go to another school in another zip code just because it's a public school and it's better. You're gonna you have to stay in your zone.
According to an article by the New York Times, New York was amongst the liberal states with the most severe school segregation crisis. 50 years after the Fair Housing Act, New York is still more segregated than most other cities across the country. In many locations in the city, it is a requirement to attend the school of your local neighborhood. Low-income students usually perform better in school if they are put into classes with students with a diversity of socioeconomic backgrounds.
Students would have done much better in their secondary education and even the college choices if they had more funding and was getting more help. So if they fund the school system better, fund the public schools better, give them the help that they need, whatever they're giving to the charter schools and the other private schools, well, if they give it to the regular public schools, these kids will do much, much better.
I think that some public schools get more resources than others because parents are more involved when it comes to their school, so they request a lot of more things. They're more informed when it comes to education. Other schools, like the families that go to their schools, are not that informed about education, so they don't really know the services that are out there that they could be getting for free, even if they don't have the money.
I could say that people here are committed to identifying bias in their work, and they talk about it. But I would say there are incidents where students feel that they're treated with a bias once or twice a year.
There's this, I don't know what's the word, there's this pre-made mold that in people's minds that black students are less willing to work and work hard, which is wrong. And people think that their money that they're funding the school with is just gonna go to waste in schools with more African-American students in it than a school with more Asian or than white students.
Successfully completing high school can be an arduous enough task without having to deal with biases. According to a Johns Hopkins study, when a white teacher and a black teacher evaluate the same black student, the white teacher were 40% less likely to believe the student will graduate high school on time. These low expectations can go as far as affecting the student's grade point average.
I think it's somewhere around 50% of public school students nationwide are minority, black and Latino, ethnic background, where I think it's only something like 2% of teachers nationwide are Black or Latino. But the reality is, in the city and nationwide, there's not a balanced reflection of Black and Latino educators that matches like the proportion of Black and Latino students that we have.
Insufficient funding can have a real impact, and I don't think it impacts how much a teacher cares or tries, but I think that there's a bit of discouragement that comes along with losing funding or funding being reduced, as it has been gradually over the last several years.
In an affluent school, the parents can make up for what isn't provided in the school budget. Parents can have a huge PTA. The elementary school that my kids went to raised over $100,000 at a benefit for that one elementary school. There are other schools that they don't raise $5.
Funds have strings attached to them, and different funding streams have limitations in terms of how they can be used. So where we have what would appear to be millions of dollars to be spending in a fiscal year for a school, oftentimes you're not able to apply them in the areas that you need or that you would like to be able to apply them in, that you feel you could exact the most amount of change. We just make it work because we have to, Money is not also it's not a silver bullet.
I mean, I wish that funding wasn't based on so much grades, and I know that has to be part of it, and part of it should be based on that, but I think it should be more even out, right? Like, we're all trying to just graduate high school and get through it.
The state needs to change their formula for funding schools in the state, especially in New York City. That we know, no one is arguing about that. What those changes are have to be debated and figured out.